Hi guys, it's Genesis. I just wanted to share with you a tool review finally. I've been using these I want to say I finally got them in November after nail camp. I took a class, one of the 60-minute classes from Lisa, about all the XCalibur implements, and then she does also have the angel feet as well, so I'm going to kind of throw that in there. And my biggest concern with getting these tools was because I had purchased these sets beforehand. I'm not going to share the brand with you. I just want to talk about the style differences in the tools. And I found that working with this particular style was not really, it was hurting my hands a lot. So completely different from the other one that I had been using, and spent, I want to say like $75 on these, and was really kind of not impressed with them because it was just hurting my hands. It has nothing to do with the tool itself. The tools are well made, they're sharp, what have you, but it was just hurting my hands. I really liked the idea of the XCalibur toenail nippers just because of the fact that they are diabetic friendly and they have the rounded tip to them. So the chances of you shedding blood or cutting into someone or what have you would be like zero, because there's no sharp edge there. Even though when you do clamp down with them, they still trim. So I loved the idea behind the tools, the fact that they're stainless steel, the history of how they were made. But that was my hesitation, is because I had bought in these and it was hurting my hands so much to be able to use them. So here's the differences in between the two of them. With these, it does have a super sharp edge to the top portion of it. The blade is super sharp, so it cuts really well. I'm not sure what handle size this is, but if you can see in comparison, like from one to the other, there's probably maybe about like a half-inch difference or so between the one and the other. So with Lisa's, I want to say the XCalibur implements have 3 different size handles, and it's something I think you really have to feel out in person, because these would be maybe for someone whose hands are larger, so that when you have the tool in your hand, whether this is actually how it would be for trimming, or if your hand angle was that way, but you need to make sure that it fits in the palm of your hand well. That was what I realized was my first issue with trying to be able to use these. And then I had gotten these ones that are meant for if someone, say, had an ingrown toenail coming on the back, or had a hang nail where actually like the nail portion right here, or I want to say they call it like a fissure. But this is a lot finer of a blade, and again is incredibly sharp to be able to get into that sidewall. The issue that I had with these ones were this part of it. I have tried tightening them, and if I tighten them to the point that I can then use the spring portion well, then it's like very hard to be able to spring back and forth. And then as I'm using them, when they're tightened, it loosens back up again, so they end up falling apart like this. I'm not sure if this has to do with just the construction of it, and maybe the threads on them, but it was a constant irritant to me. So maybe something manufacturer wise could have been done differently with them. Both of these, I will stress, are incredibly sharp. They are stainless steel tools, so they would be good for your autoclave, what have you. The biggest benefit with the XCalibur tools so far in my analysis is the fact that you have the ability to choose your handle sizes, as well as the fact that they're diabetic friendly by having this curved tip. Something that Lisa did to me, or not to me, but showed me basically when we had a model to be able to work on, to prove how safe these would be for diabetics, is with the toenail that we were working on. And sorry, I know that my nails need to be filled, but I wanted to do this video. Okay. So she actually took it up underneath the nail and put pressure. And I don't know if you can see it in the light, but basically with the amount of pressure that you could put, or that she put on there, you could see the white band that comes across to be able to tell that she was putting pressure, and then went to one side of the toe and like completely lifted it up, came on to this side of the toe, went all the way to the edge and completely lifted it up. Now, the person we were working on, her toenails were not incredibly involuted, but they still had a pretty good curve to them. So for one, when she put this amount of pressure, I immediately looked up at her and thinking she was going to be in pain, because you could tell she was putting that pressure, but she didn't even feel it. She didn't have any like movement, nothing. She was fine. And for her to be able to then glide it with that same pressure all the way to the side, and the model didn't even feel it or have any issues, that was amazing for me. Okay. Other than that, they're all stainless steel, so you could still sanitize and disinfect them and autoclave them, and you would not have any issues with that. I did decide, I want to say these are the 5.5s. I did decide to get 2 of the different styles. I bought, the straight edge here and the one that has a curved edge. If you can tell in there really, but this one kind of just has a little bit of the kick up at the end. The only thing I've noticed in between the 2 of them, because I wanted to see if I preferred one versus the other, is the straight ones don't seem to cut as well for me as what the curved ones do. I have to have my hand like slightly angled forward to allow it to trim. And when you use these, doesn't matter which style, you're only supposed to use like this first little 1/4 inch part to be able to trim. The idea that she had shown us is that you would take the straight ones, or take the curved ones first. And if this were a toenail, my hand position is going to be funky. But if this were a toenail, you would come in with it on this side to be able to trim it down just that corner. Come in on this side, trim just that corner, and then you would come in and use your straight ones to then come here and just trim just that little tiny bit, like all the way across. The tiny bites would try to prevent the nail from just like breaking off all the way across. And when it does that, it has a tendency to break further back into the skin on the toenail. But I have actually found during the couple months of using them that I really just prefer the curved ones, and angling it's a little bit different. I think that for whatever reason, my hand positioning, the angle that I use, it trims better. It like through the thickest toenails, the thinnest toenails, it doesn't matter. So I do the same procedure when I come up to the toenail now. To actually go through and more speedily do it, I would start from the pinky, and I trim and go through every single corner on all of them, all the way up to the big toe. And then I come back, turn my handle like this, go in the opposite direction and trim that corner on each one of them. And then come and do my free edge. Now this, because they are curved, you would have to come back a little bit more, but I find that hand positioning is a little bit easier than doing it with the straight ones for me personally. And then take the little tiny bites and go all the way across to then make it straightened. So personal preference, totally. I just wanted to share that experience. These have both the hinge in the center of them, as well as like a safety if you were for your storing process to be able to close completely. So that, I mean, not that you're going to cut anybody with them, but it keeps the blade well. Hey, Lisa, again, feel free to chime in if you have any little tidbits there. The other tool that I had gotten was this rasp. I really like it because of how small this edge is. It's just over 1/4 of an inch from the base of it into the front. And this may seem kind of like remedial, but I never actually was taught how to use a rasp properly. So this is something else that she kind of shared for me. So when you're dealing with an involuted toenail, I tend to always come like from this side and then come down up underneath it. And then if you pull forward, that it's gonna blunt that edge just that little bit. And the thickness on this is so thin that even for the clients that would be in more pain because of the toenail pinching in, just everything that goes along with the ingrown toenail, it's thinner, so it makes that process a little bit easier to come down on the side, rock it like down, and pull it forward to just round off that edge slightly so that it's not going to poke in. Same thing, you know, on this side, and doing it in that one direction. Sometimes if their toenail is thick enough, you could go back and forth, but I really find that just doing this is the least painful for them and helps to blunt off that edge. So super cool. And then this one is a double ended tool. So the scoopy side I think is really good to go and get up underneath there, whether you go in this direction or slide from here and slide out so that you can make sure that the corner is blunted or, you know, not poking in, as well as, you know, getting rid of all of your dirt, debris, socks, sock fuzz, all that kind of stuff, whatever. It's, again, not a sharp edge. Everything is rounded off, yet it is still pretty thin. So you're able to get into those tighter corners really well without it being painful. This one is slightly thicker than the other rasp. I don't prefer to use this one. I find that working in the smaller is really what works for me. But again, it's personal preference between the two of them. So I really don't use this side very often. It can be more beneficial if, say, they have really thick and built up callus in this area from having the ingrown toenails. And as you're gliding down, let me see if I can change my hand position. As you're gliding down from here, it would help to push all of the callus out of the way as you slide forward. So definitely has a purpose, but I use this one way more than what I use this rasp. Okay. I think that's everything. You know what? Let me show you one of the other trimmers that I used to use. Hold on. Okay, so this is the one that the style that I was really familiar with using before I started using the XCalibur implements. And if this were to ever be a possibility, I think it would be amazing. But if XCalibur could make this same style of toenail trimmer and blunt off the edge of it, make sure that this portion of the blade again is safe, which I didn't talk about that. That's another thing. It's crazy how you can glide your finger up along the blade and it doesn't feel sharp like what either of these tools do. Like I could not put pressure on the blade as I was gliding my finger along with these ones because I probably cut myself, not massively, but I would cut myself with it. Versus these, it feels more, I mean, it just feels blunt, I guess, but yet they cut through the toenails with no problem. Like I said, thick or thin. So my ideal style would be a style like this, but to have the diabetic safe edge on both the top portion and the blade here, because ergonomically your hand just goes straight in. I trim, this edge flip it over, trim this edge, and then come here and then go and trim across. So if you're going from something like this to something like this, you just need to play around with your hand positioning to really get into a good ergonomical position to be able to trim, but it's really, really worth the benefit to make the switch for your client's health and safety. Moving on to the Angel Feet files. Actually, let's start with this one. This is still XCalibur, right? I really, really love this file for doing the toenails. So I don't have to worry about like either one-use files for your pedicures or sanitizing and disinfecting them, whatever you do. It's very thin. So again, as you're coming in on this edge, you can take the bottom of it and kind of slide backwards a little bit to make sure that the corners have a good blunt edge. And even if this part of the skin is super thick, it's very easy to take and go up underneath and just glide underneath of the edge of the nail to pop it up to make sure that you can bevel it out. My only downside to this one is probably because it was created by men, maybe, that it's so long. In the ultrasonic unit that I use, it could probably be cut down, honestly, by the length of the handle on there to really fit in there well. But also, mainly when I'm using it, this can kind of get in the way of all of the other toenails. So I would say if I had to make a change about this tool, it would be to cut it off by maybe like 2 inches. But probably if you were a male or larger hands and coming in, that may be where the design came into it. Even with the diamond grit on this one, this is totally sanitizable, disinfectable, sterilizable. And I have, with all these, I don't have an autoclave unit yet, so I've just been using the, even though I have the ultrasonic, I still scrub them soap and water first because I just can't not do that. And then put them into my ultrasonic unit and then rinse them all off, go through that whole process and put them in my disinfectant. I haven't had any rusting issues with any of them yet. They've all held up really well for the couple of months of use. So make sure there's other files out there that are like this, and either they're not stainless steel or they're not made with the high quality material, because they do rust out and they lose their grit really fast. And with working on the toenails, filing down that thicker toenail, you're always going to have it takes a little bit more. So the file grit on this has stayed the same throughout those couple of months with having no issues. Actually dealing with calluses and stuff, I want to say this one is called like the Mini Pro, possibly. They have 3 different styles that you can choose from. This is the large Pro, and then they have like a middle one that's like a longer paddle size, and then this little tiny one. So for dealing with the calluses, I do absolutely love this. I've been using this particular foot file for the last couple of years, and I no longer use the more chemical-based callus removers. I use one that's more natural, so if it was left onto the skin, you wouldn't have any irritation with it. And something that Lisa had taught me to make that type of product even more effective is if you, I trim all my toenails first, get that all ready, and then I go into my cuticle work and my calluses. So I would be working on their right foot here, do all the trimming. I put all of the cuticle remover on all of them, which is again, it's a natural base. Mani-pedi Natural Nails is the name. Oh, okay. So this one is Mani-pedi Natural Nail. Cool. Then the other one must be the Mini Pro, and this is the large Pro. Okay, so put all the natural cuticle remover on, and then I use a spray. So the spray, I put that on the heel and the big toes, everywhere on the bottom of the foot, and then I wrap it in a Glad bag, a Glad bread bag, or you can use just any type of plastic, and I set that one aside. the natural heat from their foot helps that product to kind of soak in and soften a little bit faster than if you just laid their foot back down on the towel. The towel also would then absorb some of the product. So there's a timing kind of issue that comes into there when you're starting to work on the second foot, that the product is penetrating into the towel and drying off of the feet faster. So it was taking me a little bit longer to do this process if someone had really rough feet. So by doing the bag on there, then I would come to this one, trim all the toenails up on this one using this file, and put the cuticle remover on there, put the spray on the bottom of the feet, wrap that one up. Takes about 3 to 5 minutes on each foot. So when I come back to this foot, this one is now like totally ready to go. I would take my rasp tool, and let's just say, obviously this is my foot, but like if this was the big toe area, I would take and separate the big toe from the, I don't know what fulcrum, or not fulcrum, whatever the pointer big toenail would be called, whatever. Puncture down into the bag, pull it across, open that up so only the top of their toes is exposed, because I only need to deal with the cuticle portion. I would then come in. I like this one because, again, it has a blunt edge. And instead of like really aggressively pushing back their cuticles, I just take this and kind of glide from side to side with it. Go through all of them, get rid of any of the excess non-living tissue. Then I pull the bag back just a little bit further. This again would be their big toe. And I could come in with one of two of the tools, either this one here or this one. The coarse side on this one still is nowhere near as coarse as what this one is. And so if you did have someone who was more caked on, totally go into using this one. It's just that this is smaller. So as you're coming in, you have a little bit more control. It is more flexible for sure. So I find that it forces me to have a lighter touch as I'm going in and refining. You can also do the tops of the toes with it. I don't find it particularly effective for when you're doing like nail shortening. I find that this one hands down works better because on the toes, this one is not it's more rigid. So it gives me a cleaner line and what have you than this one that's more flexible. But for the tops of the toes, the callus here, it works perfectly. After I get done the tops of the toes and like the kind of the pad of their foot using this one or this one, I'll take off the whole entire bag. So the heel is now exposed, and that's when I'll start doing that. So at that point in time, this has probably been sitting on here for about 8 minutes, and it makes this file work amazingly. I think it's important that even though the way this is created, like each one of these little raised portions on here, it looks like a pyramid with the top cut off. So again, all blunt edges. So there's no chance of cutting into your client's skin or creating like these lines or abrasions on their feet. The way that it's made as well contributes to that, because this is a solid sheet of metal and then the machine presses down into it. So there's no chance of these little tiny pieces sloughing off and cutting or getting embedded into the skin either. So when you're dealing with the heel, come in with the rougher side first if you need to, and then go in with the fine side and buff everything out. If there's still a little bit of moisture on there from it being in the bag, I do kind of blot that off a little bit, because this works better on skin that is not completely dry, but just slightly moist. You're going to get the most exfoliation from it fastest when it's just slightly moist. So if it's needed, coarse side, get it all done, what have you. And then I kind of rub that off a little bit and then go into my medium side and buff everything out. Whenever you buff the skin with that side, it feels like baby bottom soft. Even my roughest clients, they get their pedicures in between 4 to 6 weeks. I have some that go 8 or more, but in between, because of that extra step of the buffing and not just going in with the coarse side, their maintenance is so much better with using that combination of the natural callus remover and this than I have ever had with any product before. So hands down, your investment, I want to say for all of these, because these are like, the stainless steels are the most economical cost wise. I want to say they were like 60 or 65 a piece for these ones. These tools were a little bit smaller. I want to say like 10, 50, 12, something like that for those. This one is more expensive. I want to say full price is like 85 on it. Lisa does run some deals every once in a while. If you're attending nail camp, is a really good time to, get a whole full set of them, and she'll help you out with that investment. This one, I want to say it's like 45, maybe. Can't remember, but it's still more expensive for, even though it's smaller, but these are going to last you for, I want to say like 1,000 pedicures is what this one is, because you're sanitizing and disinfecting it. If you were to retail it to your clients, because they're not going through all that, it would last them forever. You figure on average, if they use it once a month to do cleanup with, it's amazing. The number of each instrument. So anyone who may, let's, okay. So obviously this one is, so all in total, if I remember correctly, I want to say I spent like $250 or so on everything. And my eventual goal is, for me, I would do like 3 to 4 pedicures possibly in a day, because the fact that I do multiple services. But my goal was to get enough tools to be able to make it through the entire day and do all of my sanitizing and disinfecting at the end. I've really been trying to work on my speed in my application and dedicating more time to the client and offering them more and taking less time out during the daytime to be able to clean. So eventually I'll have 4 sets of everything, and then at the end of the day, do all of my stuff so that my tools will be fresh in the morning for me. I hope this helped you. I will put Lisa's website or information to be able to contact her in the comment area, or add it into the description. But she is an amazing wealth of knowledge. If you have any questions, I'll be more than willing to help you out. I will be posting a video on my YouTube page, which is Sozo Education, SOZO space education. And in that video, I will be doing a full pedicure with a voiceover talking about the angles of the tools, but you'll actually be able to see them in full effect. Here is all of the other ways that you can reach out to me. I'm always willing to help, and if I can't help you, then to connect you with the people that can. I would definitely have to say, when you find good people in this world that are really about your health and overall well-being and carrying that to your clients as well, we want to support those people, and Lisa is definitely one of those people that was very positive in me trying to make this change for my clients. Ultimately, I want to be the safest, sanitary wise, health wise, with, like I said, the diabetics, and making sure that I can do everything possible to be able to support them in their life and their well-being. So if you're on that path, you're in the right place. I wanted to say thank you, and I hope this helps somebody. Have a great day, guys, and I hope to see you at nail camp.